sense to you?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the Sony Bravia 2, but I brought out its little brother called the X77L, and the main reason is to say that the Bravia 2 is a step above the X77L, but just by a little bit, because this TV has 3 HDMIs where this TV has 4, but neither TV has Dolby Vision. If you're interested in something a little bit more advanced, I would probably go with the Bravia 3. After doing a comparison to this TV, the Bravia 3 is going to give you Dolby Vision and a few more features that these TVs don't have as far as color reproduction and a better panel. With that being said, let's talk about the Bravia 2. The Bravia 2 uses the 4K X1 processor, and it's been out for a very long time. And I can say that this processor is still doing its thing, but it might be time for an update. Now, after talking to a few people behind the scenes, they have made some little tweaks to their processing to make better images, but you could be restricted if you have a panel like these two, because they use IPS panel, which is going to give you better viewing angles, but you do lose some contrast in the process. When watching movies on the Bravia 2, I think you're going to have a great experience as far as the overall color volume and reproduction. The TV appears to have very accurate colors, but I will tell you on the IPS panels, you are going to get a little bit of glow in the backlights because the Bravia 2 doesn't have full array local dimming zones like the X90L. It uses a technology called frame dimming, which adjusts the overall brightness of the display backlights based off the content that is showing. And overall, I like the picture profiles in this television because there's a few to select from vivid to standard. And cinema mode is going to be great for most people. But one thing about this TV, it has a few other settings such as gaming, photo, and professional mode if you don't want to calibrate the television. You may not be that techie, but I want to show you how accurate the colors are in cinema mode. And here's a saturation sweep so you can see how the TV performs in cinema mode as well. I also checked the nits out on this TV in vivid mode with all the brightness at full. I was able to get 309, which is pretty interesting because when I tested the 55-inch X77L, I was getting a reading of 368, which makes it a little bit brighter TV than this 65-inch Bravia 2. In HDR mode, the Bravia 2 also has the same picture profiles such as vivid, standard, cinema, game, graphics, photos, and it does have a professional mode. And the only way you can tell that it's in HDR mode, if you go into the picture settings, you can see at the top of it now it shows HDR, but it doesn't have a pop-up on the screen to let you know that it's in that mode. In HDR mode, I found this TV to be a lot more accurate than the SDR mode, but the peak brightness did drop down to 271 nits, so this TV is brighter in SDR mode. And overall, the X77L is a brighter television. In HDR mode, it was able to do 311 nits. The Bravia 2 does not have a sports mode, so here's what it looks like in standard mode. And overall, Sony has very good colors and very good upscaling. So as you can see, the colors are nice and vivid. And for everyday TV watching, I think you'll be very happy with the picture. But I couldn't figure out which sizes had IPS panels and which sizes has vertical alignment panels. But if you can get a VA panel, you're definitely going to have better contrast. And speaking of contrast ratio, which is the black levels in the television, here's some examples of what this TV looks like. Now keep in mind that this is a recording, so it's not going to represent the TV fully. But watching this TV live, I think the contrast is decent. But again, you want to go with a vertical alignment panel if you want to get better contrast. You want to go with an IPS panel if you want to get better viewing angles and decent contrast. One thing about the audio system in this TV is that it does have this surround sound effect, so they did a really good job with that. And it does have an automatic setting that you can use, plus it has a built-in equalizer to increase the bass response and a dialogue enhancer. You can also set it up for auto volume for those annoying commercials. And then over here we have post-processing. And this includes Dolby Audio Processing and DTS Virtual X.
My pros, I don't play by the rules, and I switch up the flow. Hey, chill on the weekend, give X's and no. She in love with the kid, I ain't texting the phone.
The audio system in the Bravia 2 is actually not that bad if you don't want to add a soundbar, but if you watch a lot of movies or you're a gamer, I definitely would say add some type of audio system with a subwoofer to get the best experience. Now, one thing that I will say is that the X77L has 3 inputs, but it is a brighter TV. And when it comes to the Bravia 2, it's not as bright, but the interesting thing is when I look at these TVs side by side, It almost like they have the same picture quality. With that being said, it's TV testing time on the Bravia 2. The first thing we're going to take a look at is motion on this television, and this is at 24 frames per second. Now I'm switching through the different picture profiles so you can see how this TV performs, and keep in mind that this is a 60 frames per second television, and 24 frames per second is not going to be smooth on any television. While I have it in this format, I also want to show you some of the different motion settings that you have available to try to smooth out the picture if you're getting any type of trailing or ghosting whenever you're watching movies. Now keep in mind, it all depends on the signal that you have going to the TV, but at 24 frames per second, I think this TV does just fine. Now I switched the TV over to 60 frames per second. It's much smoother than it was before, but you can see that there's some artifacts on that top line and the middle line. So it depends on the content. You definitely need to do some adjustments to smooth everything out. As far as skin tone, I think Sony has some of the best in the business, and this TV represents the color science that Sony is known for. But I want to switch it through some of the different picture profiles so you can see what this TV looks like. The Vivid would be ideal if you're watching some type of TV in the daytime, but we do have our standard mode, cinema mode, and a few other profiles including professional mode, so you can get the best image that Sony wants you to see when watching movies. And here's all the ladies put together so you can see the different skin tones, and one thing that really stands out to me is that color checker. So Sony appears to have a very accurate picture, and even though you can calibrate these TVs, I still like the factory settings that Sony puts in there because they're going to give you the best adjustments according to what their techs think the TV should look like. If you didn't know, many LED TVs are known to have some type of blooming when it comes to running a black and white test, but to my surprise, being that this is a LCD panel with no local dimming zones, I thought it did a really good job with blooming. So if you're watching a lot of movies or black and white scenes, you're not going to notice too much blooming on the television, but what you will notice is the backlights because again, this TV doesn't have those local dimming zones. To be honest with you guys, I have never seen a TV that has perfect black levels or white levels across the scene, but this TV does have some vignetting up in the corners, and you can see as it goes through these different shades of colors that it does appear a little bit more on the sides. Now watching your everyday TV content, you might not notice this, but if you're a graphic designer and plan on using this TV for a computer, I definitely think you would notice it in that type of scenario. And since the Bravia 2 does have the X1 processor, it has some of the best upscaling that you're going to find in the business. In fact, I was looking at this 420p content. Besides some small jaggedy edges in the logo, everything looked very sharp and presentable, and that's all the way up from 720p, 1080p, and 4K. So if you have older content, you're definitely going to like this TV for that. I want to give you guys some bonus footage because you probably want to see these TVs side by side. And this is one scene that I want to pause so you can see the difference in the honey. If you look at the Bravia 2, I can see a lot more color gradient than the X77L, which appears to be a lot more yellow when it comes to the honey. But let's look at a few more demos so you can see the differences between these two TVs. Even though I did a test on these TVs as far as brightness, if you look here, both TVs are in cinema mode and both of them are maximum brightness, and I can barely tell the difference between the two televisions. I would say that the colors on both TVs are great, but when it comes to the brightness, I can't see that much difference. But let's look at a few more demos to see how much brighter the X77L is supposed to be. So I pulled up the scene from Ford versus Ferrari, and again, both of them in cinema mode. Let's go over to the Vivid mode. And you might be able to see a little bit of difference, but really not that much. But regardless, I want you to see the picture quality differences between these two televisions so we don't have to do a comparison later on. So for the last few days, I've been working with this Bravia 2, and what I came up with is that this is a great TV for your bedroom. I don't know personally if I'll put it in my living room, depends on which panel that you get, but it shows me that my theory was correct. Mini LED is the future. In fact, Sony's got a push for the Bravia 5, 7, 8 OLED, and the Bravia 9, which is going to have all the stuff that we want in a television. And this TV, again, has the Sony color science. It's a good looking TV, but far as where Sony's trying to push to the next level, I don't think this is it. So if you're a Sony fan and you're looking to get a new TV and you want to stay in this price range, I would definitely consider the Bravia 3, and I made a couple of videos on that you can check out right after this one. The biggest improvement on that TV is that it has Dolby Vision in it. And because of the Dolby Vision, I think it has a little bit better panel in it as well, or color science or what have you, but it's definitely a big improvement. This is not a bad TV. It works great. It's gonna give you everything you need, but it's not gonna be the inkiest black levels. I mean, you got some positive, like you still have Google in it and you still have, you know, all the Sony processing, all that good stuff, but just something to really consider whenever you spend your hard-earned money. I'm Tech Steve. If you like this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.